Welcome to the Success Talk Show, the podcast for ambitious leaders who want to get their best results and create a workplace for their teams to thrive. Each week we share practical advice to help you accelerate your success and grow as an inspiring leader. Now here's your host, Leadership Success Coach, Donna Sirianni.
Welcome to another episode of the Success Talk Show. This is Donna Sirianni, Leadership Success Coach and founder of Success Compass Academy. And in this episode, I'm going to share with you 5 tips for how you can incorporate recognition into your daily routine. Now, the benefits of doing this are, first of all, when you take the time to express genuine appreciation of another person in a meaningful way, they will increase their own confidence that they're doing the right things, and it feels really good to be acknowledged for their efforts and accomplishments. Now, it also increases their engagement. Now, what happens for the organization, the team, the organization, the company that you work for, they also benefit because the positive effects of recognition, they're directly related to increased engagement, which drives performance. So if you think about engagement, it helps the individual and the organization. Now, Gallup did an analysis. They've done many studies on employee engagement and what drives it. And one of the key drivers, one of 12, is, and I'm going to quote, "It's in the past 7 days, I have received recognition or praise for doing good work." Okay, that's one of the key drivers. Now, according to their analysis, only 1 in 3 employees in the U.S. strongly agree that they receive recognition or praise for doing good work in the past 7 days. So what that means is that any given company, it's common for employees to feel that their best efforts are routinely ignored. And now take this a step further, employees who don't feel that they're being adequately recognized are twice as likely to say they'll quit in the next year. So you can see, so first of all, if this is you, if you're in a situation where you don't feel like you're being appreciated or valued or recognized, this is going to affect your engagement, how much you want to contribute. You may be thinking, I'm not really all that happy here. I don't feel that my contribution matters. So maybe I'm going to start looking for another job. So this may affect you personally. It also may affect the people that you work with. Now, if you manage a team, you're a leader, you may want to make sure that you're retaining your top talent. So recognition is an important part of our daily work life that once you embed some key habits, and I'm going to give you some tips in a minute, you can really build a workplace culture where everybody thrives. People are given their best effort, right? And this can be one of the key drivers for you and your colleagues. Okay. Now, something else I want to share with you is this isn't just about necessarily, you want to feel good, feel confident, etc. However, this is also good for business because a study was done by the Towers Group several years ago, and they surveyed 90,000 workers in 18 countries on various workplace issues, including the level of engagement that employees felt. And there's a strong correlation between engagement and financial results. What they found is that companies with high employee engagement had a 19% increase in operating income and a 28% increase in earnings per share. And if you contrast that with companies who had very poor employee engagement, they actually had, much lower incomes, declining and drops, across the board in their financial data. So you can see that this, by paying attention to recognition, you not only can, help you and your colleagues, your teammates thrive, but it's good for business. Okay. So this is a win-win. So let's start with tip number 1. I want you to start with thinking about yourself. Ask yourself these questions. What does recognition mean to you? What does it mean to you? And how do you like to be acknowledged? In what ways does recognition impact your engagement? So for this tip, this exercise, I really want you to put pen to paper, or you can type it out on your computer, but I really want you to write down and think about what recognition means and how you like to be acknowledged. Now, how you can use this information is once you become clear what's important to you, you then can express that to your manager, to colleagues. It's not that you're going to, be reciting this daily, but you can slip it into conversation. You're having a conversation with your boss, you're talking about advancement, how you'd like to contribute, and you share with your boss or colleagues, how you like to be recognized. Now you can, depending on what it is, some things are easier than others. You're not going to say, I really want a cash bonus. That's all that's really important to me. That might be a hard sell to peddle that on a regular basis. But there's lots of things that you may be thinking about in terms of recognition. So let me give you some examples. First is around inspiration. An example might be you want to be recognized by being asked to be part of a project or initiative that has larger meaning and significance. There's something, if there's something really big happening in your organization, you being tapped to be a part of that and knowing that you're going to be able to make a meaningful impact, that inspirational assignment could be what you most want and aspire to, right? That could be one example. A second example could be task related, where one form of acknowledgement or recognition is when you get the resources you need to be successful. Because you've gone above and beyond, you're trusted, you're a high potential person, maybe you get budget funding, headcount, other resources, right? You get what you ask for because you are one of the people that the organization doesn't want to lose. You always go above and beyond. Maybe you're given opportunities to learn and grow. Again, because when you're given those opportunities, you feel like you've been seen, appreciated, and acknowledged. Maybe when you put through requests, could be submitting proposals, submitting requests, you get quick turnaround time. Can be a form of acknowledgement that you feel good based on your reputation. When you put through requests, say to other divisions, people respond quickly. That can be a form of appreciation, or even having access to information that you need. So those are just a few more examples. Now, another category is your position. Perhaps what you really want is visibility, that chance to be seen by people in the organization, maybe people higher up. Right? You want that chance to be exposed to them. It's good for your career. So you being selected for an opportunity where you get visibility can be a form of recognition. You got that plum assignment. Maybe, you being included in activities where you're part of that inner circle, you're in the loop, you get to be in the know. That could also be a form of recognition. Now, this one actually, I wouldn't say that this is one I aspired to, but I've had a couple of bosses who have tapped me to represent our division on key meetings with the CEO in the past. And that did always feel like a recognition because then I was able to, be the one to represent our division, give updates to the division. And it did feel like a form of recognition that I was the one selected to do that. So don't underestimate how people can feel about it, both yourself, that could be important to you, or somebody on your team. Another example is relationship. Acknowledgement and appreciation and recognition can also be when you're having that feeling of closeness and friendship, maybe being listened to or receiving some personal or emotional support. That kind of connection can be a form of recognition. And lastly, personal, just receiving appreciation from other people, affirming who you are, what you're good at. If somebody really acknowledges you for a skill that you have, maybe it's a quality about you, and they've really seen you clearly, and they affirm it by saying, your communication skills, when you're taking something complex and you make it simple for people to understand, they pay you that compliment, they give you that good feedback, which, I really saying they appreciate that about you. That can feel like people are affirming who you are and what you bring to the table. And that can really feel good and point out areas where then you can shine and really even build up your own confidence. Now, I will say for me personally, I'm not in the corporate world anymore. Now I have my own business. And one of the ways I love to hear from my clients is through testimonials. I find great value in learning what they most appreciate about our work together. Really helps me focus in on how I can continue to help other people, other companies. So I would absolutely love to hear from you about this podcast. If you've listened to any of my podcast episodes and you found them valuable or helpful, I'd love to hear from you. You can simply go into the Success Talk Show podcast within iTunes, click on the ratings and reviews tab, and leave a comment. This would mean so much to me. So that's just an example of one thing that, I certainly appreciate. Now, tip number 2 is make it a daily habit to catch someone doing something that you want to recognize. Now, this isn't for them just doing their job, doing what's expected, routine tasks. This is when somebody really goes above and beyond. They've made an extraordinary effort, and you can acknowledge them real time in the moment. It can be verbally, It could be through email or even a handwritten note that you've left on their desk or sent them in the mail. Now, it only takes a few minutes, but can have enormous impact on someone. So let me give you a story about somebody who showed up with a note one day. Let me tell you what happened. I was conducting a recognition workshop for an entire company. Everybody in the company was going to go through the workshop. And over the course of a couple days, the organization was broken down into multiple workshops. And a person showed up for one of them, carrying with him a handwritten note from 5 years prior to that a colleague had written to him. I think the colleague had been a project manager, and this individual had been a technology person on that project. Well, the person showed up with the note, and he read it to everybody in the workshop. And this note had expressed appreciation for his efforts on a particular project. Now, coincidentally, that same colleague who wrote the note was also in the workshop. Anyway, it was a powerful moment because it really illustrated that such a simple act of gratitude can make a lasting impact. This individual had that handwritten note. I think he said he had it like on his bulletin board, and he thought enough about it. He brought it with him, right? It was such a beautiful example. And both the guys involved with this, just chuckled because it was such a live example of how taking 5 minutes out of your day to express appreciation, the impact it can have on someone else. Now, when you write an email to somebody, you can simply send it to that individual. If they work for you, right, you just can send it to them directly. But think about, based on the context, the situation, do you want to go a step further and actually copy their direct manager on the message so the manager sees what this individual has done? Again, maybe going above and beyond. And that individual gets additional visibility along with your appreciation, right? And the visibility shows their contribution. You may even want to go further than that and send it to the direct manager and copy the employee. So how you handle it will be based on your relationship with these individuals, what the magnitude of the effort was, the magnitude of the project or task or challenge that they were working on. But writing an email can simply take just a few minutes, but now you've really made a big difference for that individual. And you've also really helped that manager to see, maybe get exposure to some things they maybe weren't aware of that somebody on their team was doing. Okay. Now, tip number 3 is be specific when you show appreciation. What exactly did the person do? Now, this helps them gain clarity on where they shine, what they do best, and what they can do more of. So in many ways, this helps them shape their behavior because they know they've just done something. Now, maybe what they did came naturally to them. They took it for granted. They didn't even think it was extraordinary, but you've pointed out something and you basically took a spotlight and were shining it on something they did, which you thought was above and beyond. And they might not even have realized it. So instead of saying something like, hey, great job, thank you, really appreciate it. Those are all, very nice words, but I'd like you to go a step further and say exactly what was it they did that made it extraordinary. You might say, appreciated when you gave that presentation to the client, your attention to detail was clear. You did extra research, which was impressive, or you brought a creative solution to the client, something we hadn't thought of. Now they're really, they're pleased with, the approach that we're taking, or it was a stressful situation. You remained calm under pressure. You handled the questions with ease and style and grace and, really made a great impression for the client, whatever it was. Just, it only takes a couple of sentences. You don't have to write something super long. The importance is to be specific. Okay. Now, the only caution here again is it needs to be authentic and well-deserved, because if from now on, every day you're saying thank you to everybody and making a big deal out of everything, then bestowing too much praise for things that are ordinary and routine kind of feels like overkill. And now you've diluted the praise and diluted the message. You're really looking for that extra effort. Okay. Now, tip number 4, when you recognize somebody, try to match the form of the recognition to that person's personality and preferences. Because, let's say somebody's really shy, they don't want to be in the spotlight, and you decide, I think I'm going to, talk about their effort and contribution at the next company meeting or the next division meeting or team meeting, and I'm going to talk about them in front of everybody and thank them. Well, you know what? Maybe that's what you like, but that individual could really be averse to any kind of public recognition. They prefer private, one-on-one, behind closed doors. They would have preferred a note, so it helps to know who you are recognizing, right? Know your audience. Now, not only just individual preferences, but also cultural, because cultural differences in how people feel recognized can make an enormous difference in what's considered appropriate. So if you're working in a culturally diverse organization, you need to develop an understanding of what those differences are for the teams that you're working with. For example, I worked at a company where we had an office in Sweden, in Stockholm. And I had learned prior to that, several years prior to that, through just personal relationships, that in Sweden, it is culturally appropriate to recognize the team, not the individual. So if you were to come into a team meeting, or let's say it's a company meeting, and you were to shine a spotlight on one person, that would be really uncomfortable for everybody. They don't like that. They don't respect that. And that would be basically a faux pas. So instead, you would want to recognize the team. Okay. Now, different cultures, every culture has a different way of handling things, whether it's individual versus team, public versus private, right? What's the norm, right? So do your homework on that. Now, I will tell you a quick story on a personal level in terms of individual preferences. When I worked in Singapore, I was managing the Asia region for my company, and I was asked to return. I guess it was there for 2 years and asked to return to the States. I was transferring back, and all of my teams in Asia, I think pretty much everybody knew I love scrapbooking. So when I left, they had put together, and these are teams across 7 countries, they had put together 3 different scrapbooks with photographs. Each person put together personalized thank you notes and memorabilia from my time there, and it was unbelievable. They presented me as I traveled through the region, kind of closing things down and saying goodbye. Different teams were presenting me with these scrapbooks, and they were fabulous. So this was several years ago, and these scrapbooks are still on my bookshelf beside my desk. Absolutely love them. It meant so much to me that they took all this time to create these masterpieces. So, every so often I still pull them out and look at them just because, it's great memories. It really makes me feel good. Now, I'm not suggesting that you need to create scrapbooks for people in the office. It's a big project. However, it just showed they really knew me. They knew some things that I really loved, and it just had great, great meaning to me. Okay. So know your audience and know the people that you're working with and what's important to them. Now, likewise, as you're working with people, you're sharing about yourself. Now, when you did an exercise in tip number 1 about what's important to you, how do you like to be recognized? I gave you lots of examples. You want to share some of that in conversation, certainly with your boss and others as appropriate, so that they're getting to know you and what's important to you. Okay. So tip number 4 is show as well as tell. It's not just about expressing appreciation by saying thank you. Here's what you've done that I really appreciate. It's taking it a step further by, through your actions, demonstrating appreciation. I'll give you a couple examples. You yourself, when you're the person expressing appreciation, think about what's important to that person, actions that you could take. Maybe you've got somebody, a high potential leader on your team. They would love to get to the next level. Ask them to represent you in an important meeting. Include them in a strategic working session where they're going to get visibility to higher ups, more senior leaders or other colleagues or other divisions. Give them access to resources. Maybe you're selecting that person. They've gone above and beyond. Let's say they've really worked hard, gone above and beyond the call of duty on some project. How can you reward them? There's many different ways. One could be you're selecting them to be going to a conference, traveling to a conference or taking a special course. So giving them access to resources is just an example. Now, this can be the most effective when you have insight into what that individual values. But what actions can you take? It may show up in day-to-day how you're interacting with others, okay? These are actions, not necessarily, the thank you note and just expressing appreciation. It's going a step further than that, okay? So I want to give you another example of show as well as tell. Let's say it is on your mind how to further develop your high potential leaders or people on your team. There are certain types of activities that they need to learn and grow and include in their portfolio for them to get to the next level. So one thing you can do for them that's a form of recognition is delegate. Delegating key assignments to show your commitment to their growth. Now, delegating has that win-win because you may be delegating something that frees you up, right? It gives you more time in your calendar to work on other things to grow yourself, but it also is allowing them to learn and grow. So think about delegation can be a form of recognition. And when you delegate, be sure to say to the person, I'd really like for you to be the one to create and deliver this presentation for this client, just an example, because I know that you have a desire to advance for working with more senior clients. And this would be a great way for you to get that experience. And you've done such a terrific job. I want to give you this opportunity. So whatever the words are, connect the dots for them as to, what's important to them, their growth. And here you're delegating something that's going to give them that opportunity. If you just delegate it with zero explanation, they may or may not see the inherent value in it. They might. They probably will, but it's always nice to add those words in there because you're getting basically a win-win out of it. Okay. Now, the last tip number 5, is spread your appreciation around. Now, in any organization I've ever been in, there are always folks who are, the most vocal, outspoken, visible, and sometimes they can be the ones who get most of the attention. They get most of the accolades. Maybe they are really great at what they do, but they're comfortable being in the spotlight. And I want you to make sure you're looking across the organization, your team, at everyone, not just the ones who are front and center, because maybe there are some who prefer to stay in the background. They're more shy, quiet. They go above and beyond, but again, they're not out there beating their chest saying, look at me. So spread your appreciation around. Make sure that you're not always focusing all of your attention on just those couple of key superstars. Look at everybody. Okay, it's really easy to fall into the trap of, there's a couple of folks who are always out in front, right? But you're going to help the entire organization, everybody on your team, when you really are looking at each individual contribution. Again, we're looking for people going above and beyond. They want to feel valued. You want to feel that way, and they certainly will thrive if they feel that they're being appreciated. So I hope you found these tips helpful. Again, you can start today. It only takes a few minutes. I'd love to see you make this a daily habit. And I would also love to hear from you. So as I mentioned earlier, you can simply go into iTunes, click on ratings and review, and leave a comment. I'd love to hear from you. While you're there, be sure to subscribe to the podcast, The Success Talk Show, so you can automatically download future episodes. And I just want to thank you for listening and have a great day.